Welcome back, Doll fans. We have a situation to discuss, and I think, I was making like clickbaity videos for this topic, but I think at this point we got to really talk about it. I think it's something that's on the table, and I think it's something that, there's something that needs to be done, and it's Tyreek Hill. I think we've seen across, YouTube, people are talking about it, but Tyreek Hill needs to get traded. Tyreek Hill needs to go. One of the things that me personally, I remember, so the draft is always like a big deal to me. I always like trying to find the best player. And one of the things that happened, and this is, maybe people will say to my detriment, this is coffee that's steaming over, is, when Tua was coming out, I was screaming at the TV, don't screw this up, pick Tua, don't screw this up, and they picked Tua. And also, Waddle. I remember we were going to draft a wide receiver that year, and it was like Devontae Smith was the dude that was going to go to the Miami Dolphins, and, there was Jamar Chase, and then there was Waddle. And I remember Waddle was like the underlying, he was injured that year in Alabama. At the end of the year, he was injured. He had like a high ankle sprain and stuff like that. But I was watching the highlights, and I remember looking at, like Jamar Chase, and, Jamar Chase is an amazing player. I remember looking at like Devontae Smith and Waddle, because at that time, Jamar Chase was going to go way higher. And I remember going like, yo, out of all these guys, I kind of wanted Waddle. Like, I was watching the highlights of him in college, and I was like, this dude is explosive. Like, he's going to be a stud. And I remember that we picked him, to my surprise, and I was like, holy crap, we got the dude that I wanted. And I remember watching his rookie year and the stuff that he was doing in his rookie year with Tua, where we basically had no receivers besides him, and he was kind of carrying our team, 100 receptions. He was playing extremely well. Honestly, most people were like, this dude's going to be probably, similar to Jamar Chase in this league and be one of the guys on this team. Like, Tua's gonna really rely on him. And then that year we got Tyreek Hill, and Tyreek Hill's amazing. Tyreek Hill is, on the field, he was great. But I remember watching that year, and, it was like Tyreek Hill had just got there. So they were both getting the ball equally, and Waddle looked amazing. He was killing it. Like, I remember him splitting two Ravens defenders to get a ball from Tua. I remember him doing all these different things. And then Tyreek Hill started talking about 2,000 yards and started spewing the nonsense of him trying to hit 2,000 yards. And I remember seeing clearly, even though he had over 1,000 yards, not really the same Waddle. I remember seeing Tyreek Hill getting funneled the ball, and Waddle just didn't seem to be as confident as he was back when he first got in the league, when he was, really, and I still think, was a stud and is a stud. So we see this over the last 2 years. And this is where, many people are going to sit there and tell me that I might be wrong, but here's the thing. Tyreek Hill needs to go. First off, you want to implement this like hard-nosed football mentality this year. Well, if that's the case, you can't have a dude like this in your locker room. You can't have Tyreek Hill. It's been, at this point, it's been like 6 or 7 incidents now. Even when you watch this stupid cop thing, like how dumb he acted towards that, like how much of an ignorant fool that he was acting towards that, was ridiculous, and I find no problem really besides the over-aggression with the cops, even though they told him that he was going to do it. And this is not the first time he's battered his kids. He did it in Kansas City, and at this point, I don't know what he was thinking, where he's taking his kid to the balcony or something like that, like a crazy person, especially when it's a damn kid. Like, it's a child. You don't do that as a godly man. You want to talk about God all the time. You don't do that as a godly man. And clearly to me, he's a dude that says God. And, again, it says lukewarm Christians will be spit out. He's not a godly man. He just says God a lot. At this point, you got to let him go. And it's let him go to free up my favorite player on this team. I truly believe that the Tua to Waddle rapport was 100% affected by Tyreek Hill coming here crying, whining, screaming, trying to get all the balls funneled to him. He was affected. And, I appreciate all the things that he was doing. Tyreek Hill was great. If you can really look back at film, Waddle towards the same receiver or corners that Hill would struggle to get open against. Waddle's route running was way better. He would get open way more of the time. You can go back years with Tyreek Hill and we were funneling him the ball, and you would see Waddle being wide open on a lot of plays. And this has a detriment to your mind because you know you're getting open. You know that when you first got in the league, you were supposed to be the dude and people were going to be built around you, but you were going to be the dude. You were going to be like the Steve Smith of this team. And this dude basically, he's great player on the field, but instead of being 1A, 1B like you were that first year, became A and B, and A got most of the targets most of the time. I think with Jonnu Smith on this team, getting rid of Tyreek Hill is going to allow Waddle to gain his confidence back as the guy that Tua wants to go to. Because most of the time, what we see is that when Tua is really in trouble, he tends to look for Waddle. He tends to try and find Waddle and now Jonnu Smith, but he tends to try and find his guy. That's his dude. He was in Alabama with Waddle. He was drafted a year before Waddle. That's his dude. He likes to throw the ball to Waddle, but Tyreek Hill screwed this whole mess up. And I'm telling you right now, because a lot of people say Tyreek Hill is this offense and all that. Mike McDaniel can formulate an offense with basically anybody, and I think Tyreek Hill is definitely a great player on the field, but he can find another person. Amari Cooper is out there. You have other receivers in free agency, and there's going to be receivers in this draft. I think with Jonnu Smith, having Devon Achane, Waddle out there, what people forget and what people I think are downplaying a lot because of what Tyreek Hill did is Tua goes through his reads very well. With Tyreek, it was always finding Tyreek first, regardless what the defense was giving you. And the problem with that is that Tua, to his detriment, also sometimes just looks at Tyreek because Tyreek always wants the ball, which I get it. But when you get rid of this dude complaining and whining and crying and doing all these things all the time, showing up late to practice, there's a energy that you can put out where you affect everybody. You affect Tua, you affect Waddle, you affect a lot of players on this team when you're just acting like a fool. Because what you can clearly see here is you got Waddle, you got Jonnu Smith, you got Tua. They're all, and I don't mean to bring this up, but they're all God-fearing men. They're always praying, they're always doing that. And you have a person that it doesn't match this type of philosophy, where this team consistently wants to be like a godly team that prays and does all this stuff. And you have a dude that's constantly acting like a 4-year-old everywhere he goes. So if you get rid of this dude, you're going to change the whole dynamic of this team. It's going to switch. And Waddle, I can bet you money, because I think Waddle's a stud. I think he's one of the best receivers in the league. I think he can be. I just think the confidence is shot because you had a dude like this on the team. Get rid of Tyreek Hill. Maybe draft a receiver. You have Westbrook-Ikhine, you have Jonnu, and you see what happens through free agency. Maybe you add an Amari Cooper. Waddle's going to turn into that dude again. He's going to turn into the guy that Tua goes to all the time, and he's going to turn into the guy that's, again, like I've continually said, Waddle's route running is better than Tyreek's. Waddle's route running is so much cleaner than Tyreek's is. Tyreek is fast, but Waddle uses it in a much better way. And like I said, the confidence, the drops, all that stuff, it's just because you're not getting targeted a lot. You didn't see that in his rookie year. In his rookie year, he wasn't dropping passes. So when you have Tyreek gets 9 targets, you get 3. That's the problem. And it's been said continually. I think if you get rid of this dude, it's time to trade Tyreek. It's time to let Waddle eat. Hashtag let Waddle eat. Like and subscribe if you guys like this video. Hashtag let Waddle eat. That's what we're doing here. Hashtag let Waddle eat. I want Waddle to eat this year. I want Tyreek gone. I want him to go to another team, be a headache for another team. Let this team flourish without Tyreek. I want to let Waddle eat. Let him eat. Let him eat. His confidence is gone because of Tyreek. You get rid of him, you allow him to get into that role where he has to step up, and he will. I promise you, just like he did his rookie year. Again, like and subscribe. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think. Love you all. Fins up, baby. Peace.